What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot to get into in the world of volleyball, such as this week being NCAA Beach Volleyball Week. Yes, who is number one to start, and who are the top contenders to win that national championship? Also, NCAA Men's Volleyball was anything short of dramatic, as we had Grand Canyon knocking off BYU, but did BYU lose a little bit more than the matches that they played against GCU? Also, how about UC Irvine knocking off Stanford twice on the road? But was Will Rotman present for the Cardinal? And we had some MIVA madness happening as Ball State knocked off Loyola. And how about Lindenwood knocking off Lewis? Impressive stuff. Also, we had some Pro Volleyball Federation as the Omaha Supernovas are getting red hot. And we had some 3C2A men's volleyball action to go over and some NAIA men's volleyball action to go over. And we have a little high school volleyball to throw in. So hand me a volleyball, set the net, because I'm about to serve you up some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you have made your way to episode 234 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on Spreaker. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on several different social media platforms such as X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We also have a Facebook page for those that still use Facebook. All you just have to do is type in the word IE Sports and then radio in the search bar, like us, and then that's how you're able to follow us on Facebook. And we also have a website, iesportsradio.com, for all of your latest sports news, our blog, our Hall of Fame, our Fans of the Month, our pages dedicated to each podcast, such as Set Point, our community forum, and our merchandise shop. For the last 9 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, which is what I did last weekend, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout out to our sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, it's low in sugar and high in protein. This is some of the best jerky you can get your hands on, and all you have to do is visit planetjerky.net and place your order. In addition, prices are slashed for the time being, and if you buy an order's worth of $50 or more, you get the shipping for free. Once again, a huge shout to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. Our second sponsor is Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations, and you're looking for the extra special touch. Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or friend, and you want to add their smile when they receive it. If that's the case, then Seal the Deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps is for you. And it's best for your invitations, letters, and gifts. Their motto is you bring the seal and we'll bring the deal and we'll bring the seal. Definitely give them a follow on Instagram. They are definitely available at Seal the Deal. I'll get you that handle momentarily. But the way you can follow Set Point is on X, formerly known as Twitter, at set_point.ie, and on Instagram, at set_point IESR. And I'm available on X, at Teran Rodriguez1. All right, let's begin. So we have some NCAA men's volleyball to go over. As first and foremost, I do want to acknowledge the chat room. Jen B, she says, have a great show, Teran. Please go easy on my poor Columbus Fury. Oh, I won't go too hard on them. And Adam Karnick, he says, good evening, Teran. Thanks for the patience with me as my rambling went slightly longer than I thought. Hey, it's no problem. And yeah, if you're ever in Adam, I didn't mean, I hope I wasn't trying to push you off the air or whatnot. Yeah, Adam Karnick, definitely check out Adam's show, Chi-Town Weekly. He talks all things Chicago sports, as he does an excellent job talking about the Chicago Bears, the Chicago Blackhawks, and also the Chicago Bulls, and the Chicago Cubs and White Sox. And he may, hence the word may, sprinkle in a little bit of Loyola Chicago men's volleyball. Hopefully. And Ralph Clayson and Larry B are also in the chat room. Thank you all for tuning in. All right, now for some NCAA men's volleyball. So it was a little bit of a quiet week in the NCAA men's volleyball realm, as honestly, it was definitely exciting, but it was also amazing. So we have to start with the match and series of the week, Grand Canyon versus BYU. So the first matchup was definitely a dramatic one. So the first set, oh man, GCU and BYU, it was the MPSF opener for both these teams, and GCU did not hold back, and neither did BYU. This was at the Smith Fieldhouse, and like I've said, Smith Fieldhouse is one of the toughest places to win at in volleyball or any place in any sport. But GCU was able to take that opening set 34-32, 22 ties and 10 lead changes. That was basically the coup de grace. That was basically what got the match started. And then set two, another dramatic set, 14 ties, 6 lead changes, but GCU pulled off that second set 25-23. And then the third set was also another 25-23 set won by the Lopes, as there were 7 ties and 4 lead changes, but it was still anyone's set. As the Lopes were led by Camden Gianni, who had 12 kills, while Rico Wardlow added 10 kills. Despite hitting only 223 to BYU's 225, Grand Canyon outdid BYU in most of the stats. They outdid them in blocks, 12 to 6.5. They outdug them 41 to 24. They outaced them 5 to 3, and they had 6 fewer service errors. For BYU, they were led by Luke Benson, who had 13 kills. Mix Romanis had 12 kills. Tion Taylor had 9 kills. All in all, for BYU, this was probably as close of a match as this is going to get. And they knew they needed to play their most perfect volleyball against the Lopes coming into this match. But GCU, this was their first test, and they wound up passing with flying colors for the most part. But the second match was just as dramatic. So, first set between GCU and BYU, GCU didn't have too much trouble, as they wound up cruising for the most part in cruise control in set 1, 25-21. And then the second set, it was a little bit more back and forth, but Grand Canyon was able to take that second set 25-20. Then the third set, BYU jumped out to a 5-1 lead. I was thinking this one was at least going to go 4, but Grand Canyon's serving really picked up. They served the ball tough in these two matches. It doesn't show in the stat line, but it basically showed in the gameplay overall, and BYU's passing just was not up to snuff. Eventually, Grand Canyon had match point at 24-22, but this was probably the most dramatic ending to a match. So on match point, Camden Gianni goes to tip the ball onto the BYU side, but it gets blocked by Tion Taylor. However, John Stanley lands awkwardly on his ankle and he goes down. The point is ruled to GCU, but then the referees have a 9 to 10 minute discussion discussing what's happening, and eventually BYU gets the point, but then they have to find a replacement for John Stanley after he turned his ankle, or sprained it for the most part. Hopefully it is a sprain. Obviously, I got to give my condolences to John Stanley and the BYU family. But after the point was given to BYU, Matt Worley decides to challenge it. He was challenging in or out, which did not make any sense whatsoever. If he was challenging a net violation, maybe that'd make a little bit more sense. But it was a weird challenge, and eventually it was BYU getting the point still, and then Tion Taylor was back to serve, but Matt Worley calls a timeout. So it's a 13-minute delay if you include the challenge, the timeout, and the injury delay, as well as the meeting with the referees. And then after that long delay, BYU misses the serve into the net. It hit the top of the tape, and it just bounced back onto the BYU side. And it was heartbreak for BYU, as they not only lost the match, but they might have lost John Stanley for quite a bit. And if you're squeamish, do not look at that John Stanley injury. The match, or both matches, were on BYU TV, and I had to go back and look at this over and over. I didn't look at the injury as much, but I was just perplexed at that third set. Grand Canyon won the third set 25-23, and it was just heartbreak hotel for BYU. I just felt bad. I'm like, please don't miss the serve. And it was just a missed serve. And unfortunately, it went into the net. If it went out, I could totally understand it. But, man, BYU definitely missed out on that win, or at least pushing the match to 4. But Grand Canyon hit 427. They served the you-know-what out of the ball really well. They had 10.5 blocks to BYU's 6 blocks. The digs weren't as high. Grand Canyon, like I said, even though they missed 14 serves, they served it really tough. They had 5 aces, with 4 coming from Carter Rogers, who had 10 kills. Camden Gianni had 15 kills. BYU only hit 276, as Capono Brown led the way with 11 kills. Mix Romanis had 8 kills. And poor John Stanley, he only had 3 kills. He did have 2 service aces, but that is just so unfortunate of him. Imagine if the point was upheld, because during that moment where the ref said point GCU, the Lopes were lining up for the handshake. But then, credit to Sean Olmstead, he said, whoa, what's going on here? Why is that their point? And I was basically screaming, challenge for a net violation or challenge for an undercall, because Gianni's foot was underneath the net when John Stanley landed on it and sprained his ankle. So, if anything, GCU definitely should not have won the point, and had they won that point initially and they won the set 25-22, BYU fans would have been outraged. But Grand Canyon is the only National Collegiate men's volleyball team that's undefeated. They're 11-0. They start off 2-0 in MPSF play. The takeaway for them is this: they need to be challenged. I thought they had not been challenged as of late, but they finally passed their true big test with flying colors. Because like I said, BYU is such a tough place to win at. And the fact that they swept BYU twice, even though the sets were close, and all of them saw BYU crack 20 points or more, I thought it was a big statement win for the Lopes. For BYU, my takeaway for them is this: I'm hoping John Stanley isn't going to be missing too much of the season, but it just shows they have balance within their offense. It's not just the John Stanley show. They have Mix Romanis, Tion Taylor, Capono Brown. The list goes on and on for the Cougars. I think BYU will be fine, but they have a very tough turnaround as they host UCLA twice this week. And the Bruins are coming off of 2 big wins against Pepperdine. But more on that a little bit later. We had some big upsets. And before we get on into some of these upsets, we have another big matchup to go over. We had UC Irvine, number 7 UC Irvine, heading down to Northern California to take on number 5 Stanford. This was definitely a great matchup. Unfortunately for Stanford, they did not have Will Rotman. No Will Rotman, as he still had that lower leg injury. But that did not deter UC Irvine, as the Anteaters actually came back from I think it was like 22-20 being down in the first set. They won the first set 28-26. Stanford then took that second set 25-22 in impressive fashion. And then the third set and the fourth set, UC Irvine really got it in gear. Had a little bit of a snag in the third and fourth set, but they were able to pull away and not look back against the Cardinal. They won both sets 3 and 4 by scores of 25-19. Hilaire Heno led the Anteaters with 23 kills. Will Darcy had 10 kills. Heno also hit 422, and Connor Campbell added 9 kills to go along with 3 blocks. UC Irvine hit 368, and they had 41 digs, with Cole Power leading the way in that category with 10. UC Irvine also they barely outblocked their foe by 1, 7-6, but they also had 8 service aces, with 3 coming from Brett Sheward and 3 coming from Hilaire Heno. Stanford was led by Teo Snooey, who had 19 kills. Ethan Hill had 11 kills. Nathaniel Gates had 9 kills. Gates did not have a hitting error. Snooey did hit 441. Nathan Litsky had 10 digs to go along with 44 assists. So that was the first match. The second match, it was just as good as UC Irvine took another dramatic first set, 25-22. Same with set 2. They won that set by the same score. But then Stanford never trailed. They got off to such a hot start. Even without Will Rotman, they knew that they did not want to get swept at home. They won the third set 25-20, but UC Irvine was able to string it together, win that fourth set 25-21. Another big night for Halir Henno. One off of his career high, 28 kills. He hit 345. He also had 6 digs and 5 blocks. Connor Campbell had 10 kills. Akil Tangatur, who I think is probably the secret weapon for UC Irvine, he had 8 kills. Will Darcy and Max Grigoriev both had 7 kills. UC Irvine as a team hit 343 while holding Stanford to only 254. UC Irvine also had 51 digs, with Cole Power having 13 of them and Darcy having 10. And UC Irvine really threw a block party. They had 9.5 blocks, but Stanford threw a bigger block party as they had 12 blocks. Stanford did only miss 8 serves, but they only had 1 ace on the night, as Stanford's offense was very balanced for the most part, as Stanford was led by Alex Rotman, who had 15 kills. Want to say that's a career high for them. Teo Snooey had 13 kills. Ryan Duras had 12 kills, and Nate Gates had 11 kills. Nice little balance right there, and that's kind of the night that Stanford needs. My takeaway for the Cardinal is this. They need big nights from those players, so Will Rotman does not have to carry the team each and every night. Luke Turner also had 10 digs. Nathan Litsky had 6 digs to go along with 3 blocks and 46 assists. But Stanford was upended twice at home. Obviously, it's tough for the Cardinal without Will Rotman. That is the heartbeat of their team. But honestly, they need other players to step up. They need the likes of Alex Rotman, Teo Snooey, Nate Gates. The list goes on and on for them. So there were other upsets that happened, as now we got to get into the meat and potatoes of the upsets. There weren't too many upsets. There were only 4 upsets on the week, 4 upsets on the week in NCAA men's volleyball. But we had this big upset. Lindenwood, the Lions of Lindenwood, taking down Lewis in a gentleman's sweep. They had no conference wins going into this match, but they wound up dropping the first set 25-20 as they never led in that set. But they took the second set 25-12, a monster bounce back set. And then the third set, Lewis kind of challenged Lindenwood, but Lindenwood won the third set 25-20. And then the Lions, they just ran wild all over Lewis. They took the fourth set 25-17. As the Lions were led by Ian Schuler, who had 16 kills and 10 digs. AJ Lewis had 15 kills. Clay Weeder, 8 kills. Lindenwood hit a whopping 370 while holding Lewis to only 185. They also outdug them 43-36, with Noah Varga leading them in that department with 11. The blocks were a little quiet on the Lindenwood side, but here is the monster stat for Lindenwood. They had 14 service aces. 7 of them went to AJ Lewis. He had 7 aces. 9 digs, and 15 kills. That's as monster of a night as it's going to be for Lindenwood. And that's what they need in order to be super successful in the MIVA, because there is a lot of parity going on, and it's not just with Ohio State, Loyola, and Ball State. It's some of these other teams. I keep trying to tell you all that the MIVA is absolute madness. Any team can be any team on any given night. And it's not just the big dogs. It's the little dogs that can basically have some big bite to their game. Look at what Lindenwood did. Look at what McKendree did to Ball State last week. Look at what Queens did to Purdue Fort Wayne. Those teams are definitely ready to rumble in the MIVA, and we are in for a wild ride. Lewis did not have one player cracking double digits in kills, as their kill leader had 8 kills, and that was Michael Sack and Max Roque. But they had pretty much everybody. They had Christian Prayer, Tyler Morgan, Daniel Haber, all contributing. The problem was they only hit 39 kills to Lindenwood's 49. And like I said, they hit 185, only 4 aces on the night. They won the block battle, but it was only 6 to 4.5. And they had 36 digs with Nico Paula leading the way with 11. So the takeaway for Lewis is this. Welcome to the MIVA, where there's lots of madness going on, and any team can beat anyone on any given night. Lewis also lost to Loyola Chicago. So honestly, that just goes to show that the MIVA is basically all that in a bag of chips. And perfect segue to go into Loyola, as they had themselves a barn burner against Ball State. But the Cardinals took the first set 25-16. It was a strong set for the Cardinals, as they didn't have too much trouble. The second set, Ball State took that one. They needed to throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at the Ramblers, taking the second set 25-23. But then Loyola finally woke up. They took the third set 25-22. Fourth set, Loyola did not have any trouble. They won it with no ties, no lead changes, 25-18. And then the fifth set happened. Ball State basically was able to find a little bit more juice in the tank to take that fifth set 15-11. They won the season series against the Ramblers, and that can go such a long way, because if these two tie for first place, then Ball State gets the higher seed in the MIVA tournament. As Ball State was led by Patrick Rogers, who had 18 kills. Tanashi Indava-Zocheva had 17 kills. Braden Savitsky-Lind also had 11 kills. Ball State hit 304 compared to Loyola's 257. Loyola did outdig Ball State 45-39, even though they didn't have a player cracking double digits in that category. Same can be said for Ball State, but the blocks were high for both teams, as Ball State had 13 blocks compared to Loyola's 10.5. Ball State only had one service ace, and they missed 13 serves. Loyola had 4 service aces and 17 missed serves. The takeaway for Ball State is this. This is a definite big win, just because last week they lost to McKendree in straight sets, and thankfully for their sake, they're able to stay with McKendree and Ohio State, because if you look at the MIVA standings, McKendree, Ball State, and Ohio State all are 4-1. And that goes a long way, especially in such a competitive and parity-like conference such as the MIVA. For Loyola, this was a huge missed opportunity for them. They lost both times to Ball State, and I feel they are starting freshmen. They are starting the likes of Lucas Anderson, who is a great serving sub. I eventually got to see Emily Eamon at that match. She made a cameo appearance at that match with Anne-Marie Anderson, the mother of Lucas Anderson. Parker Van Buren had 13 kills to lead Loyola Chicago, while Jack Yentz had 9 kills, along with Miller Truby. But Nico Meyer, or Nicodemus Meyer, or Demi, as he sometimes likes to be called, he had 7 kills. Jake Reed, and like I said, Lucas Anderson, and Daniel Fabakovic, they all had they're all freshmen, and they're all starting. We also got to see a little bit of I forget, I'm blanking on the freshman setter, but It wasn't Ryan McElliott. McElliott was one of the setters that came in. The other is a setter from my neck of the woods. But Dan Mangun and Ryan McElliott was able to share the setter roles. It was basically a whole lot of everyone being played. As Cole Schobel even saw some action. That's the one, Cole Schobel. But Loyola just missed out on a golden opportunity to possibly draw even with McKendree and Ohio State in the MIVA standings. But there are some other other notable results. We had Loyola, like I said, sweeping Lewis on Wednesday. UCLA swept Pepperdine. Ball State swept Purdue Fort Wayne. Big week for the Cardinals, as they, like I said, they're atop the MIVA standings with McKendree, who beat them, and as well as Ohio State, who they have to take on. Then Friday, we had George Mason, number 17 George Mason, taking down NJIT in 4. The Highlanders won the first set, but then the Patriots won the next 3. Then we had another EIVA matchup. Penn State knocking off Princeton twice, as The Nittany Lions took down the Tigers in 4 sets on Friday and straight sets on Saturday. Huge win for the Nittany Lions, as that's basically been the thorn in the side of the Nittany Lions. But unfortunately, it was a tough loss for Princeton. But they did get to see Henry Wedbush back at the starting setter position. USC also swept Concordia Irvine on Wednesday, but they went 5 with the Golden Eagles. But USC was able to eke out a win over Concordia Irvine. They start MPSF play 2-0 as they got Grand Canyon on the road this week. That's a huge series right there. And like I mentioned, Lindenwood took down number 13 Lewis. And then Saturday, UCLA swept Pepperdine at Pepperdine. Ball State took down Loyola, like I mentioned. And that's pretty much that right there. But other notable results that aren't ranked on ranked action, we had Sacred Heart defeating LIU twice in 5 sets on Friday and on Saturday. Keep in mind, LIU was ranked number 1 in the coaches poll of the Northeastern Conference. And then Sacred Heart was ranked number 4. And you also got to remember, Sacred Heart is still coming off that amazing 5-set backdoor sweep against Princeton from the previous week. So Sacred Heart is definitely going to be on everyone's radar. You can't sleep on the Pios. So there you have it right there, a little bit of NEC action. Let's get on into this week's AVCA coaches poll. We'll start once again from 1 through 5. Everyone's probably wondering if Long Beach State is still number 1 after sweeping Edward Waters and Central State. And they are. Long Beach State had 14 first-place votes. Grand Canyon had 8. Hawaii had 1. But Long Beach State, their grip is starting to slip a little. They were 4 points ahead of Grand Canyon in terms of the AVCA/NVA National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Coaches Poll. Like I said, Hawaii was number 3. They garnered a first-place vote. UCLA was 4. UC Irvine jumped from 7 to 5. Huge weekend for the Anteaters. 6 through 10 was Stanford. They fell a spot. Ohio State went up a spot. BYU went down 2 spots, even though they didn't lose that big time to Grand Canyon, but they got swept. Penn State stayed at 9. And take a look at this. USC, they jumped from 12 to 10. They're back in the top 10, even though they had to sweat one out at Galen Center against Concordia Irvine, who just recently beat one of the better NAIA teams in the Masters College of Santa Clara. And then 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 consist of Pepperdine, Loyola Chicago, Ball State, Princeton, and Lewis. And then, get this, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 are CSUN at 16, George Mason at 17, UC Santa Barbara at 18, Lincoln Memorial, the Rail Splitters, at 19, and then it's a tie for number 20. UC San Diego is clinging on to that number 20 spot, but they've got some company. They got Damon at number 20. It's the first time the Wildcats have been ranked. Damon is in the top 20. We get 2 non-Power 5, quote-unquote, Power 5 conference teams from the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball scene in the top 20. It's absolutely amazing, and honestly, good for Damon. They don't have too many bad losses. They do have a really good win over then number 12, UC Santa Barbara, even though they didn't have Jess Bianchi in that one. So good for Damon. They're number 20 in the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Coaches Poll. And that's pretty much that for this week's coaches poll. Now for last week's Off the Block National Media Poll. So 10 through 6 consisted of Pepperdine at 10, UC Irvine at 9, BYU at 8, Ohio State at 7, and Penn State at 6. 5 through 1 consisted of Stanford at 5, UCLA at 4, Hawaii at 3, Grand Canyon at 2, and Long Beach State, just like the AVCA coaches poll, was number 1. Now, Long Beach State did cut it close. They had 7 first-place votes. Grand Canyon had 5 first-place votes. Hawaii and UCLA both had 1 first-place vote. But the Lopes are only 2 points back of Long Beach State. Keep in mind, I still voted for Long Beach State at number 1. I actually voted Grand Canyon at number 3. I didn't think that Grand Canyon was worthy of it. But this week, they have me singing a different tune. I have voted Hawaii as number 2. UCLA, Stanford, 4 and 5. Penn State was number 6. I got that right. Ohio State was 7. I got that right. BYU, UC Irvine, 8, 9. I got that right. And I put Loyola Chicago at number 10. I thought Loyola Chicago deserved to be number 10, especially since they upset Ohio State. But unfortunately, they all thought Pepperdine deserved the nod, even though they beat UC Santa Barbara, which I don't think is as great of a team as most people give them credit for, even though they're in a very good conference. But now we go to who I voted for this week. So number 10, I voted for Pepperdine. Number 9, BYU. Number 8, UC Irvine. Number 7, Ohio State. Number 6, Stanford. Number 5, Penn State. Number 4, UCLA. Number 3, I gave the nod to Hawaii. I gave the nod to Hawaii. And then number 2, I gave that to Long Beach State. I gave the number 1 nod to Grand Canyon. I gave Grand Canyon a first place vote. I now think Grand Canyon deserves to be number 1, especially since they beat BYU on the road in straight sets. You can't tell me otherwise that BYU is not one of the tougher places to win at. And Grand Canyon just proved themselves. I kept saying last week that Grand Canyon needed to prove themselves, and they were able to do so. So I gave Grand Canyon the first place vote on the Off the Block media poll. That's going to be released tomorrow as of this recording, or Tuesday. All the Off the Block media polls are released on Tuesday as voters such as myself, Anne-Marie Anderson, Vinny Lopes, Brandon Johnson, MPSF Bias, Rob Aspero, Ira Thor, and Jonathan Bates, aka MPSF Bias. That's who I'm referring to. So give the Off the Block media poll a read. It's for all volleyball media. I know I'm missing a few, but that's for all volleyball media that votes on it, and I'm one of the voters. So that's basically my top 10 right there. So there you have it for NCAA men's volleyball that happened last week. Again, not a whole lot of upsets, but there were some notable results. There were a few eye-catching upsets. There were a few teams that avoided the upset, and there were a few teams that really showed up in their first week of conference play, a la UCLA, a la Grand Canyon. I know USC's wins aren't that great, but going 2-0 is a long way, especially since the MPSF is so difficult. I talk about the Big West Conference being a very tough conference to predict, but the MPSF is so tough, especially since USC has 2 big matches on the road at Grand Canyon. It's going to be a fun one. All right, but that is that for the NCAA men's volleyball portion of the show. We'll circle back to the NCAA men's volleyball portion in the second half, but now we got to get on into a little bit of NCAA beach volleyball, as they just released the coaches poll on Friday. And if you haven't checked out my little interview with Dane Blanton at USC, definitely do so. But let's get on into the preseason AVCA beach volleyball rankings. 20 through 16 consists of Cal Poly at 20, Pepperdine at 19, Arizona State at 18, South Carolina at 17, and Stetson at 16. 15 through 11 consists of Washington at 15, GCU at 14, FIU at 13, Georgia State at 12, and Florida Atlantic, or FAU, at 11. 10 through 6 consists of Long Beach State at 10, Hawaii at 9, Cal at 8, Stanford at 7, and LSU at 6. 5 through 1 consists of LMU at 5, TCU at 4, Florida State at 3, UCLA at 2, and your number 1 team to start off the AVCA National Collegiate Beach Volleyball rankings is USC, the reigning champs. So there you have it right there. No surprise that USC and UCLA are number 1 and number 2. I think it's going to boil down to those two again. I really think USC and UCLA are going to be on a collision course to facing each other in the national championship. But Florida State also looks good. TCU, even though they're under a new head coach, they also look pretty good. LMU, you can't sleep on them. They're chosen to finish first in the West Coast Conference. LSU, you can never count out the Sandy Tigers. Stanford, even though they got hit hard a little bit in the graduation aspect, they should still be good. This is the last year of the Pac-12, and then basically everything's going to be moving to the MPSF because there is no Big Ten in beach volleyball. And then Cal, obviously, is a contender at number 8. Long Beach State and Hawaii, kind of interesting to see Long Beach State behind Hawaii. But remember, Hawaii was upset in that Big West Conference tournament. They lost to Cal Poly in the semifinals. And then eventually Long Beach State whomped Cal Poly in the championship. And then they got that automatic qualifier, while Hawaii was able to earn an at-large. And that was so crucial for Hawaii right there. And then the list goes on and on. Florida Atlantic could possibly be a sleeper team. You never want to underestimate the Owls. I think they could probably take a page out of the men's basketball team's book and possibly make a run in the NCAA tournament. But don't take my word for it. You got to watch FAU beach volleyball. And again, this week it all starts in terms of the NCAA beach volleyball season. We got lots of teams facing one another, or lots of teams kicking off their season. I might be more involved in the NCAA beach volleyball season. Remember that little statement. I might be more involved in beach volleyball this upcoming season, but time will tell. All right, but that is going to do it for the NCAA beach volleyball portion of the show. I had to talk a little bit about that just because this week kicks off the season. And like I said, I cover all things volleyball. I'm not going to leave any volleyball uncovered. But now that time is permitting, I do want to talk a little about NAIA volleyball. Yes, I know everyone isn't. Some of y'all probably don't like I wouldn't say don't like, but the NAIA in terms of volleyball isn't everyone's cup of tea. But I do have to make note of this matchup that just happened. We had Vanguard, the reigning NAIA champions, sweeping number 4 Benedictine of Arizona, or Benedictine Mesa, and it was a big time sweep. Keep in mind, Vanguard does play its matches at either Orange Coast College or Calvary Chapel, so got to keep that in mind if you ever want to attend a Vanguard home match. And the win came at a good time because this week, it's a huge week for Vanguard. They take on Hope International on Wednesday to kick off Golden State Athletic Conference play. This is the last year of GSAC play and last year of NAIA play for Vanguard men's volleyball. Next year, they're going into the MPSF, and Vanguard University as a whole is going into Division II. That's such a huge jump because I remember when I attended Vanguard, there was no men's volleyball. There was just women's volleyball, and I was really hoping there would be Vanguard men's volleyball one day. And eventually they got a men's program. Start off with Brad Rostratter. Now Brian Rofer is the head coach, and he has the Lions roaring loudly. But that's not the big matchup for Vanguard. Hope International is not the big matchup. They're at Hope International on Wednesday. But the big matchup this week for NAIA is Vanguard hosting the Masters College. The Masters College is number 1 in the NAIA, and their only loss was to Concordia Irvine, which is no shame. That's a former NAIA school as well. But this is going to be a barn burner. Vanguard, I want to say, is number 3. They were number 3 last time I checked. That probably will change sometime this week. But it's a top 3 matchup for the ages. Masters College versus Vanguard. And oh man, I think we're in for a barn burner. I really want to attend that matchup. It's a 7 p.m. start time for Vanguard versus the Masters College. And honestly, that might be the match of the week. If it weren't for some of the other matches that were happening in NCAA men's volleyball, I would have said Masters College at Vanguard is the match of the week right there for all things men's volleyball. But I'll save that for a little bit later. But I would definitely encourage you to check out some NAIA volleyball. The Masters College is definitely looking good. They have some good recruits and good transfers. I definitely have a buddy that is an assistant coach on Vanguard. Well, a couple of buddies are assistant coaches at Vanguard. So I'm going to try to check out that Masters College at Vanguard University. Remember, the game is at Calvary Chapel. It's not going to be at Vanguard University. It's going to be at Calvary Chapel High School. And I really can't wait to see what the pit is going to look like for Vanguard University once it's finished. I really think it's going to be fun times for Vanguard University. So we're about 40 minutes in when it comes to this recording. So let's keep it going and let's keep it pushing as we have some 3C2A men's volleyball to discuss. As I attended a couple of matches and they were some good matches. I know it involved Orange Coast College, which it's kind of my alma mater, but honestly, there were some good matches. So Wednesday, I attended the Orange Coast at Long Beach City matchup, as it was a rematch of last year's 3C2A state championship, and Orange Coast needed everything and more to win this one. They weren't the greatest in this match, but they were able to down Long Beach City in 5 sets, 25-23, 22-25, 23-25, 25-15, and 15-10 in that 5th set. Orange Coast is the only undefeated 3C2A men's volleyball team as of right now, and they passed another big test on this past Friday as they took down Santa Monica on the road in 4 sets. Santa Monica has a really good team. We talk about really good 3C2A men's volleyball teams that could challenge Orange Coast. Santa Monica is one of them. They've got some legit ballers. They've got Jason Walmer, who is Jack Walmer's little brother. They also have, they were missing Nathan Kramer. That was the big thing for Santa Monica. They lost the match in 4, but they were missing its big time outside hitter in Nathan Kramer, who was out due to injury. And without Nathan Kramer, Santa Monica just doesn't look the same. They've actually lost 4 in a row ever after winning their first 3 matches. And hopefully for Santa Monica's sake, they're able to right the ship. Just because those players that I mentioned, Jason Walmer, as well as Nathan Kramer, as well as Peter Dalton Droog, all 3 of those players, they're all nominees for the AVCA 2-Year Players to Watch, or the 2-Year Player Award winner from the AVCA. And then there's also 2 nominees from Santa Barbara City, who also is pretty good. But those players that I mentioned, Jason Walmer was just booming serves from the service line. I was basically like, oh my gosh, this guy is good. And then Peter Droog, he is definitely, there's no defense against a 7-foot guy like him. I'm surprised Santa Monica didn't go to him more, but maybe Santa Monica didn't want to be one-dimensional, but they had other players stepping up. They had Bryce Boucher step up. He had 16 kills by my count. There's no official count, unfortunately, as of this recording, but Bryce Boucher, he was doing everything in his power to try to will Santa Monica to the win. But I think Santa Monica is going to get better as the season goes by. Again, hopefully they will have Nathan Kramer, because if they do, Santa Monica can definitely challenge the likes of Irvine Valley, who unfortunately beat them this past Wednesday, and Orange Coast, who, like I said, they're the only undefeated 3C2A men's volleyball team as of right now. But those were some 3C2A men's volleyball matches that happened this past week. Santa Barbara did get swept by San Diego Mesa. San Diego Mesa has actually been rather good as of late. They only have 1 loss, which was to Orange Coast College a couple weeks back at home. So no shame in losing to Orange Coast. Gold West is also a team that should be popping up on everyone's radar. They only have 1 loss, which was to Santa Monica, which they had Nathan Kramer at the time. Irvine Valley picked up a big win against Santa Monica, so you definitely don't want to sleep on the Lasers and what Rory Jones has in store for everybody. Moore Park is pretty decent. Long Beach City got its first win of the season, downing Fullerton College in straight sets. And then, like I mentioned, Santa Barbara, Santa Monica, they're both pretty good. And here's how the automatic qualifiers work. It's an 8-team tournament for the 3C2A playoffs, and the top 4 teams from the Western State Conference go to the playoffs, and then the winner of the Orange Empire Conference advances. And then there's also an automatic qualifier for the Pacific Coast Conference, meaning if you're doing your math correctly, 4 automatic qualifiers from the Western State Conference, 1 automatic qualifier for the Orange Empire Conference, and 1 automatic qualifier for the Pacific Coast Conference. So that's only 2 at-larges that are going to be getting in. And Orange Coast had to apply as an at-large. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of rankings, and then the committee decided to defer to Irvine Valley as the automatic qualifier. But regardless, both Irvine Valley and Orange Coast got in last year, and then as we all know, Orange Coast wound up winning the whole thing, repeating as state champions, which hadn't been done since 2007-2008, courtesy of Irvine Valley. But a little bracketology. If the season ended today, I would probably say OCC, San Diego Mesa, Moore Park, Santa Barbara, Long Beach City, and Santa Monica are your automatic qualifiers. And then your two at-larges are Irvine Valley and Golden West. I think those two are definitely worthy of the at-large. I don't see anyone else that pops out at me in terms of an at-large team that deserves to get in. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there'll be a team that surprises everyone and that basically shocks the entire 3C2A men's volleyball verse. But that is going to do it for some 3C2A men's volleyball. We're actually going to take ourselves a quick little break. When we come back, we've got some Pro Volleyball Federation to discuss. We got a little bit of high school volleyball to discuss. And then we've got Week 7 of the NCAA men's volleyball season, or Week 8 of the NCAA men's volleyball season to preview. Keep it locked here. You are listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, sports fans. It's me, your boy Larry B, and I want to walk you through the world of sports. No, not just the mainstream major TV deal type sports, although those are important too. But let me be your guide through your journey of all sports, from college to the pros, the minors, and everything in between. Each week, we are talking sports galore with true diehards just like you from a hardcore fan's perspective that's sure to quench your thirst around leagues you may know all too well and some you may even discover here. That's right, sports fans. If you love sports of all kinds, enjoy hearing amazing sports stories, and respect all sports because you know how difficult any of them can be to play or compete in, then this is your show. Join me, your boy Larry B, on the defining moment each week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and let the sports come to you.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Once again, definitely check out Chi-Town Weekly with Adam Karnick. He does an outstanding job breaking down all things Chicago sports. He's definitely worth the listen. He definitely has his TED Talks when it comes to the Chicago Bears, but I digress. Also have to give a shout out to Patty Bax in the chat room, as well as Mike Pat. And Larry B asked the question, can you please tell CBU to get men's volleyball back so we can beat GCU in that as well? Well, it's going to be tough to beat GCU when they have the likes of Camden Gianni, Nico Wardlow, and a bunch of other really talented players. So, I don't know if I mean, CBU's in your neck of the woods. I vote you should go and tell CBU, unless you want to pay for me getting up to CBU, but I digress. But all that said and done, let's get back on into the second half of the show. So over the weekend, I also went to see a little bit of high school boys volleyball. So on Saturday, I went down to Anaheim, the location of Servite High School. Yes, the Servite High School, who's big on football, but most high schools in Southern California are, but I digress. But I went down to Servite High School to check out some high school boys volleyball action between Edison and the Friars. And I don't know if y'all know this, but the head coach of Servite is a former guest of mine, Matt Marujo, who definitely does an outstanding job coaching the Friars. And after the match, I did catch up with him, talk to him about his team's win. Yes, Servite was able to beat Edison 3-2, which it was a great match. I will just say both teams look very potent to win the CIF Southern section. Probably in Division 2. I'm not going to rule them out to win it in Division 1 because there might be some parity, but I will say both those teams look really good. And there are some standouts that I didn't even think were going to be standing out in regards to the match. Like, there are some new faces that I learned about and that basically opened my eyes. But I will say, if you're a fan of high school boys volleyball, you definitely do need to check out the action at Servite. Eamon Rigdon definitely is one of the notable players on Edison. He's going to be heading to USC for men's volleyball, and his younger brother Joaquin actually is the setter for Servite. So I definitely think Servite has some notable names. They have some other great players such as Cooper Trong, Jake Shutt, Quinn Rosencrantz, who also played football, so that was pretty cool. Quinn Rosencrantz played football as well, football in the fall, and then volleyball in the spring, so that's pretty cool. And then Edison had some studs as well, such as Noah Nelson. Now, I'm gonna be 100% honest. I did not know who this Noah Nelson guy was until I saw him, and I'm like, whoa, this guy's pretty good. And then Owen Banner's also pretty darn good as well. Ben Winokur is pretty solid. Johnny Bronstein is the setter. CJ Addison and AJ Kubrick are both really good in the middle for Edison. So I think the Chargers are going to be pretty solid. However, they play in such a tough league. They play in the Surf League, which is home to Newport Harbor, last year's CIF Southern Section Division 1, and Max Prep's Boys Volleyball National Champion. Corona Del Mar, who a former Set Point guest, Katie Thompson, is the head coach there. The Sea Kings were actually the runner-up in the CIF Southern Section Division 1 Championship. And then Huntington Beach is also a very good team. They did lose a few players to graduation, and they did lose a couple of key players. But honestly, the Oilers always are a great boys volleyball program. They did have a streak of, I think it was 108 games or 120 games or 120 matches won, which stretched all the way from 2013 all the way through 2016. And it might be a feat that no other boys volleyball team could ever accomplish. Nobody, I don't think anybody's going to win 120 straight or 121 straight boys volleyball matches in a row. And Craig Pizzanti does a great job with the program at Huntington Beach. Not just the boys program, but the girls program. He's actually less than 100 wins away from approaching 1,000 wins. And when he gets the chance of possibly winning that 1,000th win as a head coach, I want to be there. I want to basically witness history. Because Craig Pizzanti, in case y'all don't know, he's been coaching high school boys volleyball, or high school volleyball in general, because he actually coached at Mater Dei on the girls' side, and then he eventually got to coach his alma mater, Huntington Beach. I think it was in 2007, and ever since he's been kicking butt and taking names, to quote my good buddy Cale Henderson. But I digress. And then there are also the ringers of CIF Southern Section Division I, such as Loyola. They have Sean Kelly, who is debatably the number one commit in 2024. He's heading to UCLA. He actually was originally committed to Princeton, but now he's committed to UCLA, and that's so huge for the Bruins. The Bruins just keep getting richer and richer with super talented players. But you want to know who else is getting a big-time player? USC. USC is basically they're probably getting, in my opinion, the number one recruit in the nation. They get Sterling Foley from Corona Del Mar. He signed with USC, and Foley is just a workhorse. He's been on varsity since his freshman year, and he is just a baller. And fun fact about Sterling Foley, he actually had open heart surgery. But Sterling Foley is a beast, and I'm thinking this could be Corona Del Mar's best chance at winning the CIF Southern Section Division I championship. And then there are some other good teams in the CIF Southern Section Division I realm, such as Mater Dei, Beckman, like I mentioned, Irvine and Edison. They're kind of up there. Tesoro, I think, can be up there. Maybe Los Alamitos. Miracosta, you can never forget Miracosta. That is a very good team. Even though they have a new head coach, as Avery Drost is no longer the head coach, and Tread Rosenthal reclassified to being a senior, I think that Miracosta is going to be a darn good team. Redondo Union might be up there in terms of ringers for the CIF Southern Section Boys Volleyball Championship. So you've definitely got my commitment in terms of keeping an eye on some of the best competition. Tomorrow I'm going to be checking out Mater Dei at Corona Del Mar. The two coaches are former Set Point guests, in Katie Thompson for Corona Del Mar and Jake Nunneviller for Mater Dei. And in case you're wondering, yes, Nunneviller, that's the older brother of Brooke Nunneviller, who is a beast of a volleyball player who plays for the Omaha Supernovas. So if for some reason Mater Dei wins, I will be interviewing Jake Nunneviller and asking him all about Brooke. Well, not all about Brooke, but I'll be asking him about Brooke Nunneviller and how maybe she might have gotten the super duper athletic genes. I mean, Jake was also athletic. He played at Golden West until he got injured. And he managed to turn Marina's girls volleyball program around before he departed to Mater Dei. So there you have it right there in terms of a little high school boys volleyball. But I'm going to be checking out that matchup on Tuesday between Mater Dei at Corona Del Mar. I'll also check out a little boys volleyball action on my main account, Servite at Newport Harbor. And then Saturday, I'm going to be heading down to South Orange County to see the Tesoro tournament. That's got some really good teams right there. I think Mater Dei's in it. Newport Harbor's definitely in it. Corona Del Mar's in it. Edison's in it. So there are going to be some good ringers in that tournament. But let's move on. Let's talk about a little bit of Pro Volleyball Federation, as there was actually a match that actually went on before I went live. But thankfully it got done, so I don't have to kind of say what's happening as I'm doing this show. But on Thursday, the week 4 started with the Omaha Supernovas defeating the Las Vegas Thrill 25-15, 24-26, 25-22, and 25-19 at the Dollar Loan Center. So the Dollar Loan Center is basically the home for the Las Vegas Thrill, or the Vegas Thrill. You get what I mean. Brooke Nunaviller, now that I mention her, she led the way for the Supernovas with 15 kills and 13 digs, along with 2 aces. She actually did not play in the first meeting, which I thought was crucial. Brooke Nunaviller is such a game changer. She passes the ball really well, and she also has that powerful arm cannon. Betty De La Cruz had 14 kills and 12 digs. Jess Shaban-Landsman had 11 kills, 12 digs, and 3 blocks. Tora Dixon had 9 kills, 3 blocks, and 2 aces. Christina Vukova had 9 kills and 9 blocks. Kendall White had 11 digs, and Sydney Hilly had 31 assists. It was a great night for Omaha in terms of their offense. Their offense was so balanced. They had almost 10 or 5 players with 10 or more kills. For the Thrill, Sasika Hippe led the way with 17 kills and 10 digs. Hannah Maddox had 16 kills and 13 digs. Molly McCage, 8 kills and 5 blocks. Alicia Glass-Childress, 44 assists and 19 digs. And Kylie Murr had 16 digs. So, I don't know how to say this, but I think Omaha has found their swagger. But, jokes aside, the Supernovas really needed to win this one, just because they actually lost to the Vegas Thrill the first go-around. If you all remember, the Vegas Thrill started their season off by facing the Omaha Supernovas in the CHI Health Center, and they wound up, the Thrill wound up beating the Supernovas. But now, the Supernovas were able to hold on and they actually made sure not to relinquish the lead. Okay, maybe set 2 was the lone exception, but the Supernovas held on to the lead. They did not let go of it. And that's how the Supernovas were able to take down the Thrill in a little bit of a grudge match. And then Friday, we had the Orlando Valkyries defeat the Columbus Fury at home at the Additional Financial Arena 25-27, 25-22, 25-20, and 25-11. Now, in the defense of the Columbus Fury, and Jen B did tell me don't go too hard on the Fury, I will say this. This is the first match in quite a while for the Fury. Now, part of that is because it's probably because of they're not able to have certain home matches, or it's because of scheduling. But that's going to be for a little bit later. Orlando was led by Adora Ane, who had 15 kills and 10 digs. Jill Gillen had 12 kills and 10 digs. Casimir Brown had 12 kills and 5 blocks. Georgia Murphy had 10 digs. Wilma Rivera had 46 assists, 9 digs, and 4 aces. And Shania Joseph had 3 kills and 11 digs. Asia O'Neal made her debut for the Columbus Fury. Woo! She had 19 kills, 5 digs, and 2 aces. Valeria Leon had 13 digs. Megan Courtney Lush had 12 digs. And Ray Santos had... her first name is something... It's like Ray Marilla. Ray Marilla? I just call her Ray. Ray Santos had 30 assists and 11 digs. The big thing for Columbus is this. They did not have... Other than Asia O'Neal, who was just a beast in her PVF debut, no other player on Columbus had six kills. Everyone on the team didn't even crack double digits. Everyone had 6 or less kills on the Columbus Fury. And they had 44 kills overall. So this just goes to show that Columbus was a little bit rusty, but Asia O'Neal was ready to go. She was raring to go. She missed the first match due to injury, but Columbus was able to win their first ever set, which was so big, but unfortunately it was kind of spoiled due to the fact that Orlando kind of gentleman swept them, or lady swept the Fury in the next 3 sets. But that's just how it goes sometimes, and I feel bad for the Fury that they didn't have more match reps. I understand that they don't get a whole lot of reps in just because of scheduling and whatnot. But once basketball season's over, they will finally get a chance to basically have their way of playing their matches. Anyway, so we jumped to Sunday. We had a doubleheader on Sunday. We had the Grand Rapids Rise outlasting the Atlanta Vibe at Gas South Arena in Atlanta, 25-19, 25-18, 23-25, 23-25, and 15-11. I was on the fence of seeing the Vibe possibly getting the reverse sweep, but then Grand Rapids Rise had the only Amelia Dimitrova, who had the 2020 game, 26 kills, 22 digs. Claire Chaussee had 16 kills and 19 digs. Simone Abbott had 16 kills and 10 digs. Jen B also said Reagan Cooper played really well for the Fury too. Yeah, she did play good. The one that really stood out for the Fury, however, was Asia O'Neal. And in the defense of the Fury, this was only their second match, like I said. But Asia O'Neal was raring to go. But Reagan Cooper had a match underneath her belt. For Atlanta, Anna Lazareva had 25 kills and 17 digs. Leah Edmond had 20 kills and 16 digs. Morgan Hentz had 21 digs. Allie Linehan had 6 kills and 11 digs. And it's actually her first game back since February 1st when she injured her foot against San Diego. So all in all, Atlanta did lose that one, but it just goes to show how good the Grand Rapids Rise is. And I think any team, this is probably cliche, but any team could be anytime, could be anyone, anytime, any place, anywhere. So all in all, for the Grand Rapids Rise, this was a huge win on the road. And then, speaking of big wins, the Omaha Supernovas were able to take down the Orlando Valkyries 25-13, 25-21, 21-25, and 25-20. Just like the previous match, the Supernovas were able to hold on to the lead for the most part. Brooke Nanaviller had the 14-14 game, 14 kills and 14 digs. Betty De La Cruz had 13 kills, 4 digs, and 2 aces. Jess Shaban Landsman had 8 kills, 12 digs, and 3 blocks. Tori Dixon had 7 kills and 5 blocks. Kendall White had 15 digs, and Sydney Hilly had 38 assists, 14 digs, and 3 blocks. For Orlando, Jill Gillen had the 13-13 game, 13 kills and 13 digs. Carly Scott, a former AVP player, probably going to be playing AVP most likely. She had 11 kills and 8 digs. Casimir Brown had 8 kills. Melissa Evans had the 7-7 game, 7 kills and 7 digs. Georgia Murphy had 17 digs, and Wilma Rivera had 37 assists and 13 digs. So my takeaway for the Omaha Supernovas is this. I think they've got their swagger back. And no, I'm not joking this time around. I think Omaha has kind of figured it out, and they're showing why they deserve to be the team to beat this season. I think Omaha has finally found their momentum, their swagger, their everything, and I really think that is trouble for the entire PVF, because now Omaha is basically raring to go against anybody and everybody. For the Valkyries, this was kind of tough for them, to say the least. I mean, this week was super tough, losing to the likes of the Supernovas, which was on the road. That's a tough place to play at, especially since there was a sellout crowd, and it was a record-breaking crowd in Omaha's first season. And then the Valkyries also, well, look, they beat the Columbus Fury, so let me just correct myself. It was a tough week because they lost to the Supernovas. It just felt like the Supernovas was in control of the match after they lost that second set. I mean, Orlando did everything they could to try to stay within the match, but unfortunately, Omaha had an answer for them. It was either De La Cruz, it was either Nunaviller, it was either Shaban Landsman, even Tori Dixon got into the fray. So all in all, for the Valkyries, it's not anything they should hang their heads over, and there is plenty of time left in the season. I mean, you get 24 matches, and the Valkyries have only played 5, but they just have to... They're not, like, built to take down Omaha. I think Omaha is just the team to beat. And Orlando, they have some good players. Jill Gillen is a fantastic player. But unfortunately, Carly Scott, Casimir Brown, they could only do so much against such an athletic Omaha team. And then we had a match today between the San Diego Mojo taking on the Las Vegas Thrill at Dollar Loan Center. And oh my god, I feel bad for... I shouldn't be laughing, but I will just say this. I'm not surprised that the Vegas Thrill won, which, again, it was 0-0-0 surprise that the Thrill wound up winning. And at Avid Volley said it best on Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter. It's going to be a long season for San Diego, and I really feel bad for the Mojo. But they got straight up womped. It was 25-16, 25-15, I want to say. It was 25-16, 25-15, and 25-21. Those were the set scores, as Vegas wound up winning their first home match of the season, which is good for the Thrill. Good for the Thrill. as the stats were Saskia Hippe with 12 kills and a block. Molly McCage had 7 blocks. She hit 640 and she had 3 blocks. Or she had 7 kills. She hit 640 and she had 3 blocks. Hannah Maddox had 8 kills and 3 blocks. Tammy Thomas Ilara had 12 kills, 1 block and 1 ace. And Valeria Papa had 7 kills. Tammy Thomas Ilara actually had 12 kills. And there was actually a little bit of a setter change as Tomcom actually came in the midway through the second set, which I was pretty baffled about in terms of that. So it just felt a little bit of a weird. It just felt a little weird just because thankfully they didn't play this at 7 p.m. I think they played this at 4 p.m. just because of President's Week or President's Day, and that indeed was the case. So Jen B says that's the team that the Fury could beat. Unfortunately, yes, and I don't want to say this in a negative way, but I think San Diego is probably losing to the Fury. If I compare the two teams, I think the Fury at full strength can definitely beat the Mojo. And that's no disrespect to the Mojo. They're trying all that they can. But, unfortunately, they were one of the last few teams to join the Pro Volleyball Federation. So, it's kind of understandable why they're behind the 8 ball and they just don't have the talent to stack up with the likes of the Supernovas, the Vibe, and now the Thrill. And I think the Thrill is a lot more underrated than most people give them credit for. But that was funny. Jen B said that's the team the Fury can beat. Yes, unfortunately, I don't want that to be the case for the Mojo, but I just feel that the Columbus Fury on paper can beat the Mojo. So that is that right there for a little bit of Pro Volleyball Federation. Looking at the standings, Grand Rapids Rise is 3-1. Atlanta Vibe and the Omaha Supernovas are both 4-2. The Orlando Valkyries are 2-3. Vegas Thrill is 2-2, and Columbus Fury is 0-2, and the San Diego Mojo is 0-3. So there's that for the standings. Looking at this week, we are in week 5 of the Pro Volleyball Federation, which, man, it looks like it is. The season's going by really fast, and Jen B says, don't okay them until April. All right, I won't. So obviously we had the Vegas Thrill beating the San Diego Mojo today. Wednesday is when week 5 begins as the Omaha Supernovas hit the road to take on. Oh, Jen B says, don't play them until April. Okay, but now that I mentioned this one, the Columbus Fury is hosting the Omaha Supernovas at the Nationwide Arena. All right, so this is Columbus's first home game of the season. So they're taking on one of the ringers in terms of the PVF. Now, I actually do want to give Columbus an actual chance against Omaha, but Omaha is just so stacked across the board for the most part. I don't know if Omaha is going to be losing this one. The only way Omaha loses this one is if they cough up leads. And the only way Omaha can get beaten is if they beat themselves. But if everyone is healthy on Columbus, I kind of give Columbus a fair chance. I know Asia O'Neal is a great game changer, but she can't do it on her own. I'm just going to throw that out there right now. She needs all the help she can get. But if anything, I'm expecting a great matchup right there. Then Thursday, we have the Orlando Valkyries hitting the road to Sin City to take on the Vegas Thrill. All right, this could possibly be a key matchup just because I see these two either flip-flopping from number 4 and number 5. The Valkyries take on the Thrill, and honestly, I kind of give the edge to the Valkyries, but I will just say, do not underestimate the Thrill. The Thrill is pretty good, if you ask me. Molly McCage is a beast, and it's not just her carrying the load. They've got other players that are pulling the rope for the Thrill, as they have Saskia Hippe, Hannah Maddox, and Alicia Glass-Childress is doing an outstanding job at the serve position. Kylie Mert is a freaking beast at libero. So I will say this for the Valkyries. They can't underestimate the Thrill, especially since they're on the road. They have to go all the way from Florida down to Las Vegas. That's pretty much a trip across the country for the most part, but I digress. It's a 10 p.m. Eastern start time, while the Columbus Fury Omaha Supernovas match is a 4 p.m. Eastern start time. Then on Friday, I feel so bad for having to mention this. The Grand Rapids Rise are hitting the road to San Diego to take on the San Diego Mojo. Alright, so I was actually debating on going to this match, but looking at it, I just can't. First and foremost, I'm not swimming in cash. Second and foremost, I don't have a true form of transportation. And third, after seeing the match that just went down today between the Thrill and the Mojo, I just can't go to that one. I just don't know if it's worth, and especially if I'm going to be a spectator. Now, if I was covering this game as a member of the media and I didn't have to pay, I would totally be down to going to the Viejas Arena to check out the San Diego Mojo. But I will just say, I just can't. And this is no disrespect to the San Diego Mojo. I'm not going because I don't want to see them getting beaten down. Of course I actually want to see Pro Volleyball Federation. The problem is that the Columbus, or the Grand Rapids Rise, just have a lot of firepower. And it's not just Claire Chaussee. They got lots of talent across the board, such as Amelia Dimitrova, Simone Abbott, Maren Grote, Sarah Sponsel. I didn't think that it was going to be possible that she was going to find her land legs as opposed to her beach legs. Ashley Evans is a fantastic setter. It's not that I don't think the San Diego Mojo can win. The problem is the Grand Rapids Rise just have so much firepower in their arsenal. I just don't see any way the Mojo win. The only way the Mojo win is if they play the most perfect match they can. But they have yet to even win a set. And that's what I'm hoping for. I hope the Mojo can win a set. If they win a set, then that is basically a miracle. Because they're 3 matches in, and they've all gotten swept. Granted, they played the Atlanta Vibe and the Omaha Supernovas, but that loss against the Las Vegas Thrill, but I guess it just goes to show that the Thrill are actually much better. Some are saying that the Mojo are probably going to be dead last in the PVF standings, and I hope that's not the case. I don't believe in tanking, by the way. There should be no tanking in PVF, because if there is tanking, I will find out. Anyway, but Grand Rapids Rise San Diego Mojo is at the Viejas Arena, which is the home of the San Diego State Aztecs men's and women's basketball team, as well as the women's volleyball team. I was going to mention the men's volleyball team, which actually did win a national championship back in the 70s, but San Diego State discontinued that team. Thanks, Aztecs. Anyway, so Jen B actually just mentions my next matchup. The Columbus Fury hit the road to the Dollar Loan Center to take on the Vegas Thrill. I think the Columbus Fury can win this one. If they have their team, if their offense is not just one-sided with Asia O'Neal having to carry the team, the Columbus Fury might actually beat the Thrill. However, I will just say this. The Thrill are they're building off the win over San Diego, which does not mean a whole lot. But the Thrill are definitely potent on making the top 4, because, like I said, it's probably going to be between them and the Valkyries finishing at that number 4 spot, because only the top 4 teams make the playoffs. I'm 99% certain the Rise, the Supernovas, and the Vibe are all getting in, which just leaves the Thrill and the Valkyries. And no, I don't. And this is no knock on the Mojo and the Fury, but I don't think either of those two teams are getting in. But I could be wrong. But as for the Fury and the Thrill, I could see the Fury winning this one, considering they don't have much to lose unless they manage to beat the Supernovas. And yeah, Jen B said it best. The Fury are getting 3 matches this week, so they can get some team chemistry going. The 2 teams also are facing each other on Monday in Columbus at the Nationwide Arena. And I will just say, I would not be surprised if for some odd reason the Columbus Fury wound up winning both matches. Just because they're now getting their sea legs in terms of playing. They're now getting consistent weekly matches. It's not like every other week or every 2 or 3 weeks they're going to be playing. They now get 2 weeks of consecutive matches, and then they'll have some practice time. And I'm just looking forward to seeing what the Columbus Fury can do. So the first match is on Saturday, like I mentioned. It's going to be at the Dollar Loan Center. It's at a 10 p.m. Eastern start time, so 7 p.m. my time. And then the Monday matchup will be next Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, thank goodness it's going to be at 4 p.m. my time, so I don't have to miss the match unless it goes 5. So we have that to look forward to. And then Sunday, circling back to Sunday, we have the Omaha Supernovas heading down to Addition Financial Arena to take on the Orlando Valkyries. All right, so here's the thing right here. The Supernovas, I think, have gotten their swagger back. They've won 2 in a row, and they're knocking on the door of being the best team in the league and actually living up to its expectations. I will just say this, the Valkyries, they now have to play the Valkyries in Orlando. So it's not too far of a trip. It's not like you're going from California to Orlando. You're going from Nebraska to Orlando. So I will just say this right here. I think the Valkyries can definitely challenge the Supernovas, but I think the Supernovas are going to be winning. I think the Supernovas, with their entire team, with Nuneviller, with Hilly, with De La Cruz, the list goes on and on. I think this team is showing why they were chosen to finish first in the PVF preseason poll. So I will say this for Omaha. Do not underestimate them. Well, no, obviously you don't underestimate them, but don't underestimate the Valkyries. But I pretty much am going to say this. Omaha's probably going to win. But I would not count out the Valkyries. I think the Valkyries are definitely a good team. They definitely have the potential of making at least the 4 spot. Because like I said, Grand Rapids Rise, Atlanta Vibe, and Omaha Supernovas, all 3 of those teams are getting in. I guarantee it. If for some weird reason one of those teams doesn't make the playoffs, I will donate $100 to the First Point Foundation. But I think the Valkyries can challenge the Supernovas. I just don't think they can win. They've got a lot of good firepower on the team. And here's the thing. If Orlando gets off to such a slow start, I think it's going to be tough to come back from because the Supernovas are just so darn good. But this time they have the luxury of playing at home. So they have that going for them. And I think it's definitely doable that they can win. But I'm not fully guaranteeing it, especially since they get 2 more days prior to this after they manage to beat the Vegas Thrill. And Gen B said it best. The Valkyries started a little slow. They lost that heartbreaker of a first set against the Fury, and they wound up winning the next 3. They basically lady swept them, or gentlemen swept them. Regardless, I think the Valkyries, as Gen B said, once they settle in, they can be tough. Jill Gillen is a freaking phenomenal player. And I'll also just mention Lecator member Monet of the Atlanta Vibe. She did a great job of filling in for Allie Linehan. And one thing that's common about Jill Gillen and Lecator member Monet, they're both only 5'7". It just goes to show that you don't need to be super tall to basically play the game of volleyball. You just need to be athletic in your position. And that's why I am such a huge fan of Jill Gillen. She is just phenomenal. She sometimes even get monster blocks against players that are like 6 or 7 inches taller than her. So I'm really looking forward to this week, and that Monday match, I'm hoping to have a proper recap in my own stats. I want to give a shout out to Avid Volley for filling me in on it, so there's that right there. All right, but that's that for the Pro Volleyball Federation. I do need to give a little bit of love to League One Volleyball, or LOVB. So their calendar details include this November in 2024. November 11th, training camps are open. So Veterans Day, all training camps are open, and that's basically what starts the League One Volleyball season. And then December 2nd, preseason begins for League One Volleyball, and December 16th, which is 2 weeks after, preseason ends. And then the holiday break is December 22nd through December 29th. And then the first serve for League One Volleyball is the week of January 6th. So basically the first week of the new year, we get to see League One Volleyball, which I think is awesome. And then 1 year from today, or the next year's President's Day weekend, is going to be the LOVB Classic in-season tournament. So that's going to be held in Kansas City, which I think is going to be pretty cool if you ask me. And then the LOVB finals are going to be held in April, which I think is awesome sauce. And then so far we have the League One volleyball teams from Salt Lake, Houston, Omaha, and Austin. Hopefully we get more. Hopefully we get a team for Southern California. And Patty asks, are you going? I imagine she's referring to me going to the San Diego Mojo match against Grand Rapids Rise. But to answer that question, no. I'm going to be at Long Beach State for Long Beach State Lewis this Friday. Oh, to Kansas City? No, I'm not going to Kansas City. Unless I get like a big sponsorship and I manage to get like a plane ticket to and from there and hotel booking and whatnot. So I'm not going to Kansas City for that in-season tournament. Unfortunately, no. But that could change in the span of a year. Maybe set point goes big time, and maybe, just maybe, I will be able to cover that. Maybe I can get someone from League One to basically hook me up. And Patty Beck says I should go. Okay, I'll try to make a point to hence the word try, to maybe reach out to somebody from League One volleyball and try to go to there. All right, so other things to make note for in terms of League One volleyball is one weekday head-to-head match between two teams, one weekend 3-game series, including doubleheader between the remaining 4 teams. The weekday match and weekday series will be hosted by 2 different League One volleyball pro cities. Matches will rotate between League One pro volleyball cities week to week. And then also League One updated something on their website with some clarification. Again, January 6th will be the first serve for League One volleyball. All 6 teams will be playing each week. Though I probably missed a couple, so my bad in regards to that. But the host city will be League One volleyball Salt Lake, which I hope they get a name. And then day 1 will be League One volleyball Houston versus League One volleyball Salt Lake. And then day 2 will be League One volleyball Houston versus League One volleyball Austin. Ooh, nice little Texas matchup right there. And then also on day 2, League One volleyball Omaha takes on League One volleyball Salt Lake. So there will be a little bit of a built-in rest week sometime down the season, but that's basically what all I got in regards to that whole thing. And that's pretty much that for League One volleyball. And I think League One volleyball can definitely keep up with Pro Volleyball Federation. Obviously, it's going to be a year behind, but hey, Rome wasn't built in a day. All right, but that is that for some pro volleyball that's happening in women's volleyball. Now let's get on into the preview of Week 8 of the NCAA men's volleyball season. Then I'll let you all go. All right, so the big-time matches don't start until Friday. We obviously have some matches here and there, but on Friday, it all gets started with this. Number 5 UCLA heads down to Provo to take on number 8 BYU. The two teams are facing each other on Saturday. I'm just going to say this. BYU, I know it's tough for them losing John Stanley to that ankle sprain. I know they're coming off of two sweeps against Grand Canyon, but they're facing UCLA and they can't afford to hang their heads. And UCLA is 2-0. I really think BYU can challenge UCLA, but I just think that UCLA has a little bit more firepower in the tank. But if BYU can get UCLA into a 5-set match, then all bets are off. I imagine Smith Fieldhouse is going to be rocking. I would not be surprised if there was like 5,000 or 6,000 in attendance. Like, BYU has to get its Smith Fieldhouse going. It has to get filled up. Then also on Friday and on Saturday, we have number 10 USC heading down to the Cactus State to take on number 2 Grand Canyon. All right. This is actually my match and series of the week. I actually did not have a match and series of the week going into it, but I have to put USC and Grand Canyon as match and series of the week. Why? Because both these teams are 2-0 in conference play, and we'll finally get to see some more clarity regarding USC. Now, USC did have a little bit of a scare last week. They did almost lose to Concordia Irvine. They outlasted them in 5, and they've had their ups and their downs. They lost to CSUN, they split the series against UC San Diego, they split the series against UC Irvine, which is in the top 10. They missed out on a big upset against Ohio State at the First Point Collegiate Challenge. They took down Ball State, which was right behind them, which was their first big test. Now let's see them take down a possible top 3 team. And then for Grand Canyon, it just goes to show that the pressure is on Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon is the last undefeated team in National Collegiate Men's Volleyball. Grand Canyon also is undefeated in MPSF play, but so is USC. All MPSF matches are so precious just because if for some reason you get that number 1 seed, you basically get a bye. You basically get a first round bye into the semifinals, and it increases the chances for GCU to make the NCAA tournament as an at-large if possible, because there are 3 at-larges and 5 automatic qualifiers from the SIAC, the Big West, the MPSF, the EIVA, and the MIVA. And then jumping downward, we have number 6 Stanford heading down to number 11 Pepperdine, as the two teams are also facing each other on Saturday as well. All right, so Pepperdine went 0-2 in their MPSF opener, but they lost to UCLA. The big question is for Stanford is this: is Will Rotman going to get back anytime soon? Because if Stanford doesn't have Will Rotman, they're going to be easy pick. Okay, I wouldn't say easy pickings, but they're going to be at the mercy of Pepperdine. Pepperdine is now playing some better volleyball as Cole Kachansky is so amazing, and Cole Rasick and Akin Wumi is doing good. However, if they don't have Will Rotman, they have to be more balanced offensively. They have to have basically Nathaniel Gates, Teo Snooey, Alex Rotman leading the way. I really think that Stanford, this is a crucial week for Stanford. This is their MPSF opener because, remember, last week they played UC Irvine. But that was kind of the tip of the iceberg in terms of them getting their matches started, in terms of their true matches started. Their true tests are starting to begin. And ever since the CSUN loss, Stanford has lost 5 in a row. They start off the season undefeated, then they lost to CSUN, which was the first weekend they didn't have Will Rotman, and then they lost twice to Hawaii, not last week, but 2 weeks ago. And then last week they lost twice to UC Irvine. So Stanford needs to get Will Rotman back ASAP. But if they don't get him back, they need to have everyone else stepping up. Then we go a little bit of more conference play. And this is a little bit of Big West action. We have number 18 UC Santa Barbara taking on, tied for number 20, UC San Diego in La Jolla. All right, this is the first Big West Conference match in men's volleyball. And boy howdy, it's going to be a good one between the Gauchos and the Tritons. The Tritons are just barely holding on to that number 20 spot along with Damon, while Santa Barbara now needs to figure it out. If Santa Barbara can basically play their game, if Jess Bianchi is having the night of his life, I don't think UC San Diego can keep up. I'm not saying that UC San Diego is going to lose, but on paper, I just think UC Santa Barbara has the better arms. Yes, the Tritons have a lot of good firepower. They've got young firepower. They don't have a Ryan Kaw, but then again, Santa Barbara doesn't have a Ryan Wilcox, but they do have a Jess Bianchi. But for UC San Diego, this is kind of their the first test on their hands. Yes, they beat USC, but this is where their season gets really, really real. This is where it gets super real for the Tritons, and they have to grow up in terms of their youthful team. And then also on Friday, speaking of Big West, we have number 15 Lewis heading down to the 562 to take on number 1 Long Beach State, which is where I'm going to be at on Friday. Well, let me just tell you this. Lewis has nothing really to lose. Thankfully, they get a break from MIVA play as they play Long Beach State, and this is only going to help Long Beach, or it's going to help Lewis out, just because if for some reason Lewis does make the NCAA tournament, they get to go to Long Beach State. And most of the matches that Long Beach State and Lewis have played has been in the Midwest, whether it's in Romeoville, which is where Lewis is, or in Chicago, which is where Loyola is. But I will just say this for Lewis, they don't have much to lose in this match. Now, the next match on Saturday, where they hit the road to Northridge to take on CSUN on Saturday, that has a little bit more implications. But I will say, Lewis has a big test on their hands. They don't have much to lose because I could still see them being ranked in the top 20. But I will say, against CSUN, I kind of expect them to win that matchup. But if they have a night like they did against Lindenwood, CSUN is going to rip them to shreds, especially since it's the second night of a back-to-back, which they sometimes might have to get used to just because sometimes their MIVA matches work like that. CSUN, on the other hand, doesn't really have that luxury in terms of back-to-back matches until they get into conference play. But for CSUN, this is a big week for them right there. They could pull into the top 15 with a win over Lewis. Lewis is going to have to play their best match against Long Beach State, and they're just going to have to serve and pass really well against both teams, especially CSUN. So we'll see what happens with the Flyers against the Beach and the Matadors. And that is pretty much all I have in regards to my top NCAA men's volleyball matches to watch for in Week 8. As I know what you're probably thinking, this is pretty much West Coast heavy. There's no EIVA matches. There's no MIVA matches. Well, unfortunately, there's nothing that really catches my eye in regards to the EIVA and the MIVA. But what can you do? But that is going to do it for the NCAA men's volleyball portion of the show. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you everyone for tuning in to Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. Shout out to the chat room, Jen B, Patty Bax, Larry B, Mike Pat, and Adam Karnick, as well as Ralph Calise. I really do appreciate y'all tuning in. Set Point is probably going to be going live next Tuesday at noon. Unfortunately, I have things to take care of on Monday, aka PA announcing, but time will tell. If anything changes, I'll let y'all know, but expect Set Point to go live on Tuesday at noon. So there you have it right there. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have a great rest of the week. Enjoy the volleyball action. If you're on President's Week, enjoy your time off. I will see you all on Friday for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. For real this time. Peace!